Okay, folks, it is now time for our third Oscars tier list of the first 25 years of the 21st century with the Best International Feature category. Now, obviously, unlike any of the other last two tier lists, it's just the standard five nominees all these years, 125 films to be precise. Um, I might not have a lot of quick thoughts on a lot of these movies, because this just might be more of a quicker rundown. And in fact, with from 2016 all the way up to 2019, I did reviews on a lot of those films that were nominated in Documentary International and Animated Feature from those years. And with only 125, this might be more of a quick, faster paced tier list video. Same thing probably when it comes to the documentary and animated feature category, as I want to actually try to get this done before the Oscar nomination. So this one's going to be more of a quick, round pace ones. Might be a little bit difficult for me to give my thoughts on some of these movies because some of which I've not seen in quite a while. So with that being said, let's just kick this up, I would say, starting with the 2000s. Now, one thing to note is that there are a couple of movies I already have talked about in the other tier lists, whether it be the Best Picture tier list or the non Best Picture top 8 tier list video. So there are going to be some that I've already talked about. So I will just kind of do a quick recap of where they were in the positions so that way you can remember it. If you want to know my thoughts about those specific movies, you can go check out the other two tier lists for the Best Picture tier list and the non Best Picture top 8 tier list. So starting up the 2000s, from Mexico, Amoros Perros by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu. I am giving this one a B. I obviously do have this film, the Criterion Collection. It's been almost, I think, 5 years since I've seen this movie. Obviously involves around three different stories that all have one way and similar connection to one another. With Gal Garcia Bernal as one of the leads, I know Goyo Toledo. I forget who the other one is, but those are the only two notable ones I know about this one. A pretty decent debuted one. I more from really like the Goyo Toledo segment of the movie because it's obviously all three of these stories have one massive correlation to the big conflict that would become something similar, I would say, to what he would later do with Babel. Next up is our winner that year from Taiwan, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon by Ann Lee. It received the Best Picture nomination, so if you've seen my Best Picture tier list, I had put this in an E. If you want to know my thoughts about that, go check out that tier list video, the first part. Next up is Divided We Fall from the Czech Republic. This one is my personal pick. I would have chosen this one, and I'm putting this one in S. This is a really great survival story of a fictional story of two obviously a husband and wife, obviously that has a massive connection with a Jewish family, and the son of the Jewish family managed to escape from his concentration camp in Poland and spends the rest during World War II hiding in their house. And one of the most unique Holocaust survival stories in a fictional format, to be precise, with our fantastic performances from the main characters. And but the story really was a really great and well directed. This would have been my pick. Next up, Everybody's Famous from Belgium. This one, I'll be honest, I did watch, but it was without the subtitles, but I get the story. Just putting a famous singer in hostage, that's just not good. I'm gonna have to put that in F. Next up is The Taste of Others from France. I barely remember much about this film. It's not really about eating. It's just I think some sort of correlations. I don't really remember as much, even though I just watched that over a month ago. But I had to put that in E. On to 2001, and at the Oscar score today, this definitely would have been the winner because obviously it was nominated for a lot of categories, including original screenplay, and would have made it in the 10 for Best Picture. From France, Amélie by Jean-Pierre Jeunet. I've already talked about this movie as well in my non-best picture top 8 tier list video, and I am putting this one in B as well. You can go check out the video of me already talking about this one on part 1 of that video as well. Next up, I just realized this is not in the right order. But the next one is from Norway, Ellen. And no, not the name you're thinking of. This Swedish film, I ended up really enjoying this one. I have to give this an A. Just basically about these two friends, two guys from two different mental facilities. Well, specifically, they were in a mental facility as adults, with one having been a kind of like a mama's boy kind of a scenario with our main character, and the other who has a massive sexual problem. And then, of course, when they have officially became roommates, they really have an interesting development. If there are two different scenarios, how they not also become great friends and roommates, but also the situation they have to deal with in the real world for the first time in general for them without their massive issues. Um, with our main character dealing with the poetry and having a great old friend with him, an old guy he has great friendship with, and then the other guy obviously having a unique relationship with another resident in the apartment who's pregnant, and it's just a unique ensemble cast and really well, phenomenally performance. I have not seen the prequel or the sequel to this film. I can't really find that anywhere online or any streaming platforms, but I really did enjoy this one. Next up from India, Lagan, or Lagan, Once Upon a Time in India is his full title. Wow, despite of the length, it is such an amazing film. I have to put this in S. Not a masterpiece. There is like a few minor issues, but basically, the whole summary is if you want to know how to play the game of croquet, this is the best movie to basically the best explanation. This is kind of a fictional story, obviously, of with how the royal family under I forget which queen was it when they ruled a portion of the territory in India, and obviously their massive leader in the English side of in their area decided to battle with all the residents of the game of croquet, not making the deadline of like the money that they have to owe it to the military. And then this unique croquet match of how the team was built up, and how the sister of the military personality is with the side with the resident of India. Um, and then this also being a unique musical with songs by A.R. Rockman, which I think, I'll be honest, I think this musical, the music in this film, and I'm gonna be honest, I think the music in this film, even this is also technically a musical as well. I think it's better than the music in Slumdog Millionaire, honestly. So yeah, if you want a great long movie from India, with does have a couple of English in it, and more specifically, if you want to know how to play the game of croquet, I say go with Lagan. Then into our winner from 2001, No Man's Land from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I did not. This is the only one from the 2001 lineup I did not like. It was my least favorite of the five. I'm gonna have to give this one. I'm gonna have to give this a D. It's just I get the story and I get the whole survival scenario between the two different sides of where this war is taking place, but I think it's just maybe it's not really not an entertainment format, but but it's kind of like I think it's just that with me not being big on a lot of war movies, I think that could be the reason why. And then we have from Argentina, Son of the Bride, from Juan Jose Cambala, who would actually later on make a winning film in this category in 2009. I ended up really did enjoying this movie. It stars Ricardo Darín, who was in actually in two other big Argentina movies that we'll get to throughout this tier list. Um, I would say I would give this one an A as well. I really love the whole scenario of where our main character, not also dealing with the situations where he's dealing with not just the relationship with obviously like with that he's going on, and obviously dealing with his obviously with his daughter, but more specifically of building up this unique wedding in honor for his mother who is dealing with dementia. And so that was organized by him and his father to get his parents to recreate their wedding, because of what's going on, and it really is unfortunate. But the story is really well told, and also with the situation with our main character also dealing with the restaurant he is owning, which was owned by his parents. But yeah, Ricardo Darín definitely does do a great job in this. But the actress who plays the mother who has dementia, fantastic as well. Now into 2003, and we begin with our winner from Canada, The Barbarian Invasions from Daniar Khan. I already had talked about this in the non-best picture top 8 tier list video in the first part. I'm obviously I put it in E, so if you want to know my thoughts about it, go check out the first part of that video. So with that, let's go into Evil from Sweden. And I gotta say, this is definitely a perfect title. Because if it said something differently, I really would have been pissed off with this movie. But the fact that it's called Evil, um, it basically kind of definitely explains it right. I'm putting in B because yeah, that's what the basically the movie is. It's just evil because the thing is, our main character is dealing with all the evil that's going around with all the people that he has to deal with, whether it be his abusive stepfather or any of the classmates in around the new school he goes to, and even before he went to the school, he was technically an evil himself, and now is dealing with the situations because of what's going on. But yeah, and also he tries to find a way to make sure to calm his evilness down, but obviously he knows that he's still going to get the beatings from his stepfather. In the last scene that he has the massive confrontation with that, it's just perfect. Even though I wish it would have been a lot more because the stepfather definitely should have been arrested. I'll be honest. If we would have seen him behind handcuffs, I think that would have made a lot of things. And like the mother also kind of really feels ashamed of what she's not doing, because even though she really loves her son, but she obviously doesn't want to face the consequences of her what would be now her abusive husband, I would say. Obviously, we don't know the full conclusion, but obviously, with the unique story aspects that's going on around the school, but also just how he has to figure out also the evil surrounding himself and around the people that are also evil, especially his stepfather and two big bullies in the school he goes to. Then from Japan, we got the Twilight Samurai. I don't remember anything about this movie, so that's gonna go into E. So I just don't have any memories of it. Next up from the Netherlands, Twin Sisters. Oh my gosh, this is so good. Not a masterpiece, but it is definitely going to S tier. I really love Twin Sisters here. Going into this unique story of these twin sisters, of the different aspects they're going through, where two German sisters had the massive relationship that they have, but then the situations they were in, where one of them goes to the Netherlands and spends a full independence life with a unique rich family, even though it's they're not really caring for her about that much throughout the beginning, and then you have one who kind of almost deals with an abusive farm relationship, but then she kind of goes more a little bit in, obviously since this was set during the beginning stages of World War II and Nazi Germany, she really kind of has the more fulfillment of the Nazi party a bit, even though she's not really understanding what's going on, of course, as obviously we would see, and we would go into the present of them finally reconnecting as old women now in a spa retreat and trying to beg for their forgiveness the last time what happened. They see each other after the end of World War II, and the relationship they had with two different soldiers that fought in two different positions. So it's very unfortunate of what it is, but it's just the performances, and you can understand like each of the characters, not for the Nazi side of one of the sisters, but more specifically the life she had, compared to the other sister. But both of them have unique ways, and I really felt like you really felt supportive of the sisters because they're still twin sisters regardless, and it's just still amazing. This would have been my pick for 2003 over the Barbarian Invasions. And finally, we've got from the Czech Republic, Jellery. Period piece, don't remember as much, so yeah, that has to go in E. Next up, 2004. Almost a perfect lineup here, kind of similar to 2001. There was just one I didn't like. Let's start this up with from Sweden, As It Is in Heaven. I am putting this one in S. I also really love this movie here. The way how this ex-composer kind of now is taking over this community church choir in his hometown, returning like his hometown village, returning back to after a very very long time, and getting to understand some of the personalities of some of each of these members of the choir and how the community kind of overacts, especially the pastor of that church, of how some things he really is not liking what he's doing, and he just knows what he wants to do, even though he knows it's kind of dangerous for him because of his health. But um, he really has the passion for the music, and within the entire ensemble that really joins within, especially whether the one who is kind of the love interest to him, or the one that has an abusive husband that actually the main character knew about him as a kid. So it just really like kind of a unique community movie. Like it's just a really unique movie about not because of our main character, but also the community around that he does help out with. And this would have been my pick for 2004. Speaking of choir movies, let's go into France's nominee, The Chorus, which is actually a remake of a 1945 French movie called A Cage of Nightingales. I think this remake actually ended up being better than the original. I'm putting this one in A. Um, I really did like how our main character with this teacher, um, finding a way to make this unique students from going to under this troublesome principal or headmaster leader, I forget what, of the punishment that he does, and trying to almost like not really similar to As It Is in Heaven, but I would say I think maybe similar to not to Evil, I would say something else, but I forget what movie. A lot of troublesome kids into an actual great community of a choir, and just really impressing what everyone does, and each of them, the kids having a unique personality, especially one with him getting his massive solo part. Yeah, but I really loved how the cast is in here with all the kids and stuff like that, and just specifically how this main character really had admiration as a teacher, but also as a choir director as well. And here's the one that I was not the fan of the most, and even though it is a very important subject matter, and obviously became a big meme on the internet, Germany's nominee Downfall, the somewhat biopic of Adolf Hitler. And this is the movie that has the famous Adolf Hitler breakdown scene, the most famous scene in the movie that became an internet meme. But in general, the movie, it's not really about him, but it's also around the people around Adolf Hitler during the last weeks before his obviously his suicide, before the German surrender. I don't remember much of this. I have to get this knee. It's just not really something. It's not really about Hitler. I was really thinking they were going to do that because the actor who plays him did a really well job, but it's just more about the people around him more so than the man himself. Even though we all agree that yeah, Hitler was a bad person, it's just obviously this was the only movie that managed to wanted to do it the right way to tell how evil Hitler was, but I think just going about the people around him was probably the big downfall, no pun intended. On to our winner, The Sea Inside from Spain by Alejandro Embederby, I believe, the guy who did The Others. And this not also won for international feature for Spain, but also was up for makeup and hairstyling, starring Javier Bardem, who almost got in for Best Actor. I am putting this one in B. I really loved like this is obviously a biopic of a real life person who was a famous poet and who had been I think now paralyzed for a long time, and I think the only way he had to write is I believe through his mouth, I believe, but he had became a big advocate for what he wanted to do, and also with the people that he used to he's interacting during when he's stuck in bed all the time. It's just an interesting story. Bardem definitely gives a fantastic performance here. Um, I think it's just there might be some scenes when it's not around him that might not be the least interesting. Then again, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I did enjoy this one. And then we go into South Africa's Yesterday, and I am putting this one also in B as well. This focuses on our woman who is actually named Yesterday on her deal with AIDS, because the AIDS crisis was definitely something during South Africa, of course, and also finding out that her husband, who has been out of work, also was HIV positive, but it's the community around her that is not really comfortable with her dealing with the AIDS, except for one who is like a teacher and stuff like that. And now her finding out and her battle with it, but also specifically more of her husband who got it way worse. She is definitely dealing with the fight for it. The main actress who played Yesterday, definitely a fantastic performance from her. Um, definitely unique journey of how difficulty that it's still an issue to this day that there's still no cure for AIDS, although it's not as big as an outbreak as it used to be. But especially in a country like South Africa that had that big breakout, it really was unfortunate, even though this is a fictional story. Next up, 2004, almost a perfect lineup here, kind of similar to 2001. There was just one I didn't like. Let's start this up with From Sweden, As It Is in Heaven. I am putting this one in S. I also really love this movie here. The way how this ex composer kind of now is taking over this community church choir in his hometown, returning, like his hometown village, returning back to after a very, very long time, and getting to understand some of the personalities of some of each of these members of the choir and how the community kind of overacts, especially the pastor of that church, of how some things he really is not liking what he's doing, and he just knows what he wants to do, even though he knows it's kind of dangerous for him because of his health. But um, he really has the passion for the music, and within the entire ensemble that really joins within, especially whether the one who is kind of the love interest to him, or the one that has an abusive husband that actually the main character knew about him as a kid. So it just really like kind of a unique community movie. Like it's just a really unique movie about not because of our main character, but also the community around that he does help out with. And this would have been my pick for 2004. Speaking of choir movies, let's go into France's nominee, The Chorus, which is actually a remake of a 1945 French movie called A Cage of Nightingales. I think this remake actually ended up being better than the original. I'm putting this one in A. Um, I really did like how our main character with this teacher, um, finding a way to make this unique students from going to under this troublesome principal or headmaster leader, I forget what, of the punishment that he does, and trying to almost like not really similar to As It Is in Heaven, but I would say I think maybe similar to not to Evil, I would say something else, but I forget what movie. A lot of troublesome kids into an actual great community of a choir, and just really impressing what everyone does, and each of them, the kids having a unique personality, especially one with him getting his massive solo part. Yeah, but I really loved how the cast is in here with all the kids and stuff like that. And just specifically how this main character really had admiration as a teacher, but also as a choir director as well. And here's the one that I was not the fan of the most, and even though it is a very important subject matter, and obviously became a big meme on the internet, Germany's nominee Downfall, the somewhat biopic of Adolf Hitler. And this is the movie that has the famous Adolf Hitler breakdown scene, the most famous scene in the movie that became an internet meme. But in general, the movie, it's not really about him, but it's also around the people around Adolf Hitler during the last weeks before his obviously his suicide, before the German surrender. I don't remember much of this. I have to get this knee. It's just not really something. It's not really about Hitler. I was really thinking they were going to do that because the actor who plays him did a really well job, but it's just more about the people around him more so than the man himself. Even though we all agree that, yeah, Hitler was a bad person, it's just obviously this was the only movie that managed to wanted to do it the right way to tell how evil Hitler was, but I think just going about the people around him was probably the big downfall, no pun intended. On to our winner, The Sea Inside from Spain by Alejandro Embederby, I believe, the guy who did The Others. And this not also won for International Feature for Spain, but also was up for makeup and hairstyling. Starring Javier Bardem, who almost got him for Best Actor. I am putting this one in B. I really loved, like, this is obviously a biopic of a real life person who was a famous poet and who had been, I think, now paralyzed for a long time. And I think the only way he had to write is, I believe, through his mouth, I believe. But he had became a big advocate for what he wanted to do, and also with the people that he used to he's interacting during when he's stuck in bed all the time. It's just an interesting story. Bardem definitely gives a fantastic performance here. Um, I think it's just there might be some scenes when it's not around him that might not be the least interesting. Then again, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I did enjoy this one. And then we go into South Africa's Yesterday, and I am putting this one also in B as well. This focuses on a, our woman who is actually named Yesterday, on her deal with AIDS, because the AIDS crisis was definitely something during South Africa, of course, and also finding out that her husband, who has been out of work, also was HIV positive, but it's the community around her that is not really comfortable with her dealing with the AIDS, except for one who is like a teacher and stuff like that. And now her finding out and her battle with it, but also specifically more of her husband who got it way worse. She is definitely dealing with the fight for it. The main actress who played Yesterday, definitely a fantastic performance from her. Um, Definitely unique journey of how difficulty that it's still an issue to this day that there's still no cure for AIDS, although it's not as big as an outbreak as it used to be. But especially in a country like South Africa that had that big breakout, it really was unfortunate, even though this is a fictional story. On to the second half of the 2000s, and we begin this up with Italy's Don't Tell, or The Beat That My Heart Skipped, I believe, or is it The Beat in the Heart? I forget what it was. Man, a lot of critics hated this movie. It was massively panned. I mean, it got like what? It's like around what currently right now, 19 or in the 20s on Rotten Tomatoes. Ouch. So you would think I would put this in the double F tier and would consider this the worst nominee in the category. Um, but I'll be honest, Don't Tell is one of those movies, like for me with Shrek the Third, where it's a movie I ended up really loving, but don't understand why critics hate it. Yes, I ended up liking Don't Tell, and I'm putting this one in S. Not double S. It's not a masterpiece, but the whole situation of where our main character is, from that fantastic performance by that actress, I forget the name. I don't have the information with me right now. Um, the all the interesting situation with the relationships that she has with a close friend of her actual real life partner, and then maybe potentially thinking that her partner is having an affair and she might be having an affair as well, but and also with all the people around her and trying to connect it, and obviously with the health situation that she's dealing with towards the end. It's a fantastic film. I don't understand why critics hate this. This would have been my pick for 2005. Next up from France, Yoex Noel, also known as Merry Christmas. This is obviously a fictional story of the Christmas truce of 1914 during World War One. Obviously, the most famous portrayal, of course, is in 2014 with the famous Sainsbury commercial. But this is the only movie that kind of really goes into the Christmas truce in a fictional interpretation between three different countries. I am putting this one in D, unfortunately. I really did like the whole Christmas truce scenes, but obviously they did on Christmas Eve. But when it comes to how they did told it in a story format, like with all the different perspectives prior to the event and what kind of really delves into this, because this is technically a fictional story of what happens. It is unfortunate the situations because obviously this was World War One. This was not World War Two, of course. Between the three different countries, and it is very unfortunate. Obviously, what they had to deal with, of course, on Christmas Day of clearing up all the bodies and stuff like that after what happened before Christmas Eve. But the entire Christmas Eve scene, the Christmas truce, their entire thing, that was fantastic. I really wish it was about the entire thing, or that could have just been a short film on its own. I believe Diane Kruger is part of the cast. Daniel Bruhl, I believe. Gary Lewis, who plays Billy Elliot's father, plays a Catholic priest that is part of the army. So he really did a fantastic job. But I think the entire Christmas Eve truce scenes fantastic, but the rest of the movie not by much, unfortunately. Next up is Paradise Now from Palestine, or the Palestinian Authorities, as some people call it. Well, when it was called at the time. I'm giving this one a B. a B plus, almost an A minus, but I would say a B plus. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but it is a very interesting investigation story between these two guys. I don't remember much of how it was because I think it. Once again, I said it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but it was still a pretty good one, I will admit. So, it was still a great investigation story. So I'm hoping to find it in a physical media coverage, or I don't have the information, of course, like I said in front of me because I'm doing this video. Next up from Germany, Sophie Scholl, The Final Days, which obviously looks at one of the biggest opposing of Germans in the against the Nazi Party, specifically Sophie Scholl and her, I believe her brothers, I believe as well, that were involved with this. Um, I am giving this one an A. It's just very, like, you can tell who was one of the real true heroes of trying to end the Nazi Party, and she was one of the big advocates that unfortunately executed by the Nazis. And it just really makes you angry of what they did to her and her entire family. Julian Genest, who plays our title character, does a fantastic job, as well as all the others who played her brothers, and just dealing with the situations of all the crimes. And then unfortunately they had, sadly, they unfortunately did not commit, obviously, but unfortunately the Nazi says they did commit it. It's just unfortunate of how she was, and she is definitely one of the true advocate heroes, to opposing the Nazi Party in Germany. And finally, we have our winner from 2005, Sotsi from South Africa, which looks at this, at kind of this ex young gang member, um, ended up taking a baby from a famous, rich family of rich parents, and looking after the baby for a while before, what she decides to do. I'm giving this one a C. I just like, the concept definitely seems great, but I just think maybe the execution just didn't work well, and maybe our main character situation. Like, I understand that her relationship with the child. I forget, it's a girl, I believe, in this movie, or it's a. It's been a bit since I've seen this movie. I don't have the information, but yeah, it just seems the concept seemed interesting, but I think it just didn't work well in its execution wise. Next up, After the Wedding from Denmark by Susanna Beer, who would later on make a winning film, in this category in 2010. This is a very interesting movie here because it not just directed by her, but it stars, Mads Mikkelsen and Rolf Lassgard. Mikkelsen obviously stars in The Hunt in Another Round, and Rolf Lassgard stars in A Man Called Uva. I am giving this one an S. This is a fantastic movie of going into the story of how this, rich man is finding, getting this, other guy, which is Mikkelsen's character, to, like, not also work in a business thing, but then of course, there is a reason, obviously, of not also, that the businessman is married to his ex girlfriend, but when he was invited to the wedding, um, his ex girlfriend's daughter might actually be, his ex boyfriend's biological father, and obviously the relationship, it's not really what you think it is. It's kind of more like a build up because, obviously Lascar's character probably just find a way to find Mikkelsen's character because Lascard's character is technically kind of dying, um, with a secret health that he has not told, I think, his ex-wife or his, daughter yet, and obviously bringing him back to the realms and also finding the situations, not just specifically with, trying to also reconnect what would be her biological father, and her actual, technical adoptive father with his mother, but also the relationship she's having right now, whether it be with her husband or that she just got married and stuff like that. And then just finding the situations, it's just very, very heartbreaking, but it is a very fantastic movie of the reconnection, and it's not the way of the situations with all four of them, but like what's going on around outside of them, like not with their relationships, but like all the situations that are going on in their own different merits. The remake that from 2019, starring Michelle Williams, Billy Crudup, and Julianne Moore, that was fine. Even though it was an interesting concept of doing that gender reversal thing with the two women taking the positions and the one male being the one. But they still kept the daughter scenario. I think that it could have been interesting if they did like a son connection instead. Um, but I think I would say stick with the original film. I felt mixed with the remake. Next up, Days of Glory from Algeria. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I really did enjoy it. This unique war movie. I am gonna give this one a B. But it would be maybe a B minus or just a B. Like I said, kind of similar to Paradise Now. It's been a bit, even though it's like 5 or so months ago or 3 that I did watch this on YouTube, but with its actual English subtitles. It's been a while, but I know that there were some really great scenes in the movie, but I just forget what it is right now on the top of my head. But I did enjoy Days of Glory. Next up into our winner from Germany, The Lives of Others by Florian Henker von Dornismark. I am giving this one a D. Like No Man's Land, this was my least favorite of the 5. I would have not gone with it. The concept definitely seemed interesting of trying to figure out what is the secret going on with the person they're following, with Erlich Muller in one of his final film roles before he died. Of his investigation of it. I don't know if this was his true final film or not. I might be mistaken in that. Of the secret that's going on. I don't know if it was a communist thing. It was. I think it had to been a communist thing. I believe because that's what I think. Because this kind of setting, I think, during the Cold War. I believe. I know it wasn't a Nazi thing, of course. That's what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was like a World War II scenario, but it's not. Um, but yeah, I just don't really. I think it's just didn't work well in execution wise on both a written narrative and an acting narrative as well. Yeah, this would have been my least favorite pick. I like No Man's Land. I would have not gone with this. I would go back to No Man's Land even more so than The Lives of Others. And then here is the one movie a lot of people think that should have won, since it won 3 of the 4 technical categories and original screenplay. From Mexico, Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro. I already talked about this in the non-Best Picture Top 8 movies. This, of course, goes into A tier. So if you want to see my thoughts on the film, go check out Part 2 on that non-Best Picture Top 8 tier list video. And so our final pick is from 2006, and that is Water from Canada. I am giving this one a C. The concept definitely seemed interesting of this young orphan girl, going into this, like, not really this nursery, but more like a nunnery, I would say. But she's not allowed to go outside of the outdoor environment as much. But obviously, with the unique friendships that she has with not just this younger, not really younger not young as her, but more specifically like a woman around her 20s, I would say, and then this man who had it's almost kind of like not really an adoptive father per se, but more like a father figure that she never had, and the situation that she kind of he understands where our main character, I believe, called Water, is coming from, and also the maybe trying to build a relationship with that woman who's kind of in this upper treehouse that, but is in a massive capacity or something like that. But yeah, I think kind of similar to, I would say, with Evil, but the characters that are main the 3 characters that are dealing with all the other women's in this nunnery are really mean spirited. But unlike Evil, where the characters are very likable because you can understand that because of the title, oh, that works so well. I think the characters that are supposed to be the mean ones, yeah, they're not. They're just not that good in general. Even though the performance, like, yeah, you can separate the performances, but I think it's just the dialogue. I think is the reason why the characters are just so very mean. Next up is 2007, and I gotta say, this has to be, I think, in my opinion, the weakest lineup in this category's history of this century so far. I wasn't really big on any of them. Okay at best to eh. So we start this up with Before from Austria. I'm giving this one an E. A lot of the war scenes are pretty good, but I just don't think the story and how the build-ups, like, with the exception of all the battle scenes, the rest of it, not really that interesting. Then we are into our winter film from that year from Austria, The Count of Federers, which looks at a couple of if I'm correct, real life Jewish people working in this kind of like not really newspaper facility, but some sort of document facility, I would say. And I think this is kind of a true story, I believe, but I forget if this was a biopic or not. Concept seemed interesting, but execution-wise, not by much. So I have to give this a C, but it would be a C minus. And then we're into the Polish film Catan. I don't remember anything about this movie, so I have to give that an E. From Kazakhstan, Mongol, The Rise of Genghis Khan. I love that first hour. That first hour was great, but after the first hour, it kind of went a little bit downhill, I would say. More kind of like a revenge story and stuff like that, of what Genghis Khan does after, like, obviously the build up he does through from as a kid to an adult in the first hour, really great. But the revenge aspect kind of didn't. So I would have to give this a C, but it would be a C plus. And another movie that I would give a C plus to is from Russia, 12, which is the Russian remake of 12 Angry Men. Both its adaptation of the 50s teleplay and the 57 Sidney Lumet film, which is a classic, obviously. It's definitely a very interesting concept, I would say, of doing a Russian version of 12 Angry Men, and obviously retelling the murder story, but there is some interesting aspects, like, of the situation, what's going on in that country at the time, and why they had to do their jury at a school gymnasium instead of a courtroom, because the courtroom was under construction. I think it was some sort of a war that happened. I forget. I don't know the timing during what was going on in Russia during the late 2000s, of course, but it was kind of modern telling of it. And obviously, it's told the entire story like in a unique remake way and a very interesting concept. But I just think there is. I think we don't get. I think we get a lot of backstories a lot, and I think that could be the big problem. On to 2008, and we begin this up with Belgium's The Battermanov Complex. I am giving this one a. Um, I'm gonna give this a B, but it would be a B plus, almost an A minus. But I'm gonna give it a B plus. I mean, it is the real life story of these real life people who really fought an advocacy of what the subject was. I forget what it was, but it wasn't a Cold War scenario, but um, I don't have it in the top of my head. But if you know what the movie is, then you get what I'm going with it. It's kind of similar to Sophie Show: The Final Days. Like even when you compare these two, obviously they're both real life biopics. The difference is some of the advocates in this film did survive, unlike unfortunately what happened in Sophie's Show in real life. But the whole scenario of the situation they were dealing with, whether it be from their punishment they had been receiving or their advocacy, really well directed, I would say. And the cast definitely ensemble is really fantastic. Next up from France, The Class, which is actually based on a novel by the star of the movie, like not just the author of the book, not also adapted his own novel, but also starred as the teacher in this film. Interesting casting decision. I'm gonna put this in. I'm putting this in C, but it would be a C minus. Yeah, the concept of an interesting relationship with the teacher in his class is very interesting, but I think it just didn't work well execution wise. I think if you did not have the teacher himself adapting his own novel and being the main actor, I think if you would have gotten somebody else that probably like okay, sometimes there are some people that adapt their own novel into a screenplay movie, which works a lot sometimes, but I think this one did not for me, honestly. Next up is Departures from Japan, which looks at a young man kind of dealing with the situation of what he does in a Japanese funeral ritual where they clean the body of the dead person and then I think wrap them up before they're buried and stuff like that. And I am giving this one a B plus. This would be my personal pick in the international category. Um, it is a very interesting concept, and our main character, I forget the actor's name, but did a fantastic performance. Yeah, it's a very interesting scenario of the tradition that happens in some Japanese funerals. Since this is still technically a modern telling of it, so because this is not like a past thing, this is like in the modern world. So I really did enjoy that concept. So and just knowing a little bit about what the Japanese funeral ritual does in some cultures for that, it is very interesting to see that. Next up from Austria, Revanche. This is actually in the Criterion collection, but Since I didn't get it, I wasn't big in the movie. That's gonna go in E. I don't remember anything about this movie. And then we come into Israel's nominee, and not only our first documentary in this category of the century so far, but our first ever animated film to receive a nomination in the international feature category, Ari Folman's Waltz with Bashir. So this obviously looks at Folman's trying to rediscover his past of what was going on during the Lebanese War at the time, since he doesn't have any memory of it. But honestly, I really couldn't get into this movie. Not the subject matter, but I think maybe the it's not even though this is a documentary, I just think maybe just having it I think the movie would be kind of something to what Loving Vincent would do. And I think that could be the thing why I have to put this in E. It just like because I saw Loving Vincent a couple of years back before this, it's like it's kind of reminded me this would be something what Loving Vincent would do of reimagining all the past events and trying to figure out all the answers. And I think that's the reason why it just didn't work for me because I think it could have just been something else. Like at least it works well with another animated film that we'll get into later on in this when we get to the 2020s. But I think it just didn't work well for Faults with Bashir. And now we are into 2009, and we begin with Israel's Ajami. So yeah, Palestinian theming being submitted from Israel. I get it where the story is going, but I'm gonna have to put this in. Yeah, I'm gonna put this in D, but it would be a D minus. It is obviously the situation of what's going on with the like, relationship between the brothers and stuff like that, and the whole situation's going on. But I just don't remember anything. I think that's the only thing. It does kind of have a heart, I will say that, but I don't remember anything about Ajami. Next up from Peru, The Milk of Sorrow. I am giving this one a B. This would be my personal pick. This was a very weak lineup, but at least unlike 2007, there is one from 2009 I did enjoy with The Milk of Sorrow. With our main character's situation in the house she works at, and obviously how she kind of is a very, very quiet person. And then you can understand like some of the situations where she's going through. The actress who played her, I forget what her name was, did a fantastic performance of it. And I think if the main character wasn't likable, I would have given this a D. But I think her performance and all the characters she has to interact with, I think that's the reason why I put it in B. I think that performance really captivated the movie, and that's why The Milk of Sorrow would be my personal pick. If you're wondering, 12 would have been my pick for 2007. I would say, if you're just curious. Next up from France, A Prophet by Jacques Audiard, the man who would later make the most controversial Oscar movie of the 2020s so far. We'll talk about. Yeah, I already talked about that, but this is one of his earlier films. I'm gonna have to give this an E. I like the concept definitely seemed interesting, but I think it's just I could almost see. I think maybe this movie probably explained to me why no one liked Amelia Perez. I think it's just because I think this is focusing on Persian people specifically. I forget. Um, I know there are a lot of movies where that has French movies have dealt with other different cultures, but I think this is the prime example for me. I can understand why people did not like Amelia Paris. It's not awful by all means. I just think maybe the filmmakers just didn't get the right note when it comes to Persian people, I would say, when it comes to this movie. Now we're into our winner from 2009, The Secret in Their Eyes from Argentina by Juan Jose Cambella, who did Son of the Bride. I don't remember anything about this movie. I'm going to have to give this an E. I even preferred the English remake from 2015 more so because at least I can understand it a little bit, but not by much. And that could also be the example thing why I even go back to A Prophet more so than The Secret in Their Eyes. Honestly, I just don't understand like the whole like I think there's just like too much backstory scenes that I think that could be the problem. And then ending up the 2000s, we have The White Ribbon from Germany by Michael Haneke, which also got a cinematography nomination, but I don't remember much of this movie other than being black and white and Leo Benesh, who is a star in one of our future 2020 Oscar-nominated movies, obviously in this decade so far with The Teacher's Lounge. We'll get to that film later on. Yeah, I just don't remember anything about that movie other than being black and white. On to the 2010s, and we begin this up with Beautiful from Mexico by Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu. I already talked about this film as well in the non Best Picture Top 8 tier list in the third part when we looked from 2010 to 2015. So if you don't know, I gave it a B. It also did receive a Best Actor nomination for Javier Bardem, which he definitely did deserve that nomination. So if you want to know my thoughts about that, go check out the third part of that tier list video. Next up, from Greece, Dogtooth by Yorgos Lanthimos. Okay, as much as I really did enjoy The Favorite and Poor Things, but going on to what was the movie that broke him out into the Oscars consideration, I would say, because he obviously this was the first movie the Academy recognized him. Oh gosh. I did not like Dogtooth at all. I think the parents are, especially the father, are just absolute dicks to the children. Who, even though they're now all grown up, but it's just like falling under these regulations is just strict parenting. It's just like parent abduction, I would say, and like this is one of Yorgos's first films, I believe. Not his first film ever, but this is the first film the Academy has recognized by him. But oh gosh, going back to one of his older films, yeah, yeah. I don't know why the parents were not charged. I think this is probably, yeah. I would never thought I would put this in double F tier, but I would even go back to Everybody's Famous more so than Dogtooth. Next, into our winning film from that year from 2010, In a Better World by Susanna Bier, who did After the Wedding. I don't really remember much of this movie either, so I had to put this in E as well, other than there were just two different stories about, like, the boys and then one guy serving in a medical position somewhere in Africa. So that's the only thing I kind of remember about it. But here's one I am very excited to talk about here, and that is Canada's Incendie, the movie that got Denis Villeneuve into the Oscar spotlight, even though the countries are the nominees and not the directors, but this was the first movie from him to get Oscar recognition. I am putting this one in S. This film is fantastic of the way how these two siblings are trying to understand their mother's backstory and trying to figure out who was their biological father. And obviously, the entire cast, especially Lubino Anasi, who played, I think, was the daughter or was it the mother? Anasi was the daughter, I believe, and Melissa Desworks Poulin was the sister. I might be wrong on this. Let me know if I'm correct, but I think I might have gotten it correct. Both of them give fantastic performances. This definitely should have been up for picture, director for Villeneuve. It would have been my personal pick for adapted screenplay. It was a fantastic script, and two performances from the ladies were fantastic. It's well edited, well shot. It's just one of the best films of 2010 that really should have got a lot more recognition. Like if the Oscars did recognize a lot of Denis Villeneuve prior to Incendie, this definitely would have been a great Best Picture nomination. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. And then for 2010, we have Outside the Law from Algeria, which is actually from Rashibo Shahem, who did Days of Glory. Which, even though I didn't like Days of Glory, I don't remember anything from Outside the Law, so I have to put that one in E, unfortunately. And here comes another round of E tiers, I would say, for 2011 from Belgium Bullhead. I don't remember anything in this, unfortunately, so I have to put that in E. Then from Israel, Footnote from Joseph Cedar, who did Before It, which, although Before It had some decent war scenes, I also have to put Footnote in E. I don't remember anything about that movie. Next up from Poland, In Darkness from Agnieszka Holland, who did Europa back in the early 90s, which earned an adapted screenplay nomination. And she did two films this decade, Green Border and this past year with Franz. This is a fictional Holocaust survival story of following a couple of Jews hidden inside the sewers. This is a fantastic fictional story. I'm putting this one in S. Agnieszka Holland really did a fantastic job directing this movie. The intense survivalness with all the characters that are hiding in these sewers, and dealing with the situation. It's a very interesting concept to do a fictional story of this of a unique way of survival. I don't know if this was a real life story of there were actual Holocaust survivors, um, of real life Jewish people hiding in the sewers. I might be wrong on that, but then the whole climax at the end, wow, that was fantastically well directed. Next up, Monsieur Lazare from Canada, as it focuses on technically an illegal Middle Eastern teacher teaching a class that has really been not doing well, but obviously has done a lot better job as a teacher when a lot of these connections with the students really had one, especially with one who really admires of his origins, not in a romantic way, that she views Monsieur Lazare as her favorite teacher, and the best teacher she has had in a long, long time, because she's really been not the same as she is, but when he comes in as the teacher she really admires, because we all have our favorite teachers that we really do admire. I am putting this one in A. Mohammed Felak, who plays our main teacher, fantastic performance from him. He really did a great job with his performance. The story, not really fine, but it is okay at best. But it's just the direction of the performances that really, really did captivated the movie. So well done on specifically the acting and the direction for this. It's a really great one. And then for 2011, we have our winner, Iran's A Separation from Ashghar Farhadi. This was another movie that was in the top 8 categories I'd already talked about in the second tier list video. It got an original screenplay nomination. I put this in B. So if you want to see my thoughts on that film, go check out part 3 of that tier list. And now we're into our another Best Picture nominee, Amor from Austria from Michael Haneke. I already talked about this in the Best Picture tier list video as well. I'm putting that one in B. If you want to see my thoughts on that film, go check out part 3 on the Best Picture tier list video. Now we're into Norway's Kon-Tiki, and let me just say this right now. So I will put this in C. I will say that first. But I think this movie should have been ruled ineligible because the thing is, the movie is primarily in English. And I think that's maybe could be the reason why it didn't took to the movie, but I think the movie should just been ruled ineligible because I think English was the primary language in this movie. Obviously, the whole survival thing really well directed, obviously. And the thing about it is, this movie kind of reminds me. Even though I don't think it's true, but I wonder if this movie would have been the basis for the famous video game Raft. If you do watch video game Let's Plays, especially multiplayer ones, Raft is definitely a game that looks a lot of fun, especially in multiplayer mode. Even though I think they finished completing the entire full status of the original game after all the updates. Yeah, I wonder if this movie would have been the inspiration for Raft, because that reminded me a lot when I was watching this movie a few years ago, during this early decade. But yeah, even though that seems an interesting concept, but I don't remember much of it. Even though there's a lot of great moments when they're all working together as a team, but as I stated, this movie should have been ruled ineligible because it's primarily in English, but since I don't have an ineligibility tier, but just going by this, I would just put, as a movie on its own, it would just be at C. Next up, No from Chile, from Pablo Larraín, the future director behind Jackie, Spencer, and Maria, starring Gal Garcia Bernal here, and this is kind of about the Chilean movement, I would say, of having the news media against the Chilean military government or something like that, because I know this would also be later touching the documentary The Eternal Memory, when we'll get to that in the documentary tier list, but I don't remember much of this movie. Not even Gal Garcia Bernal could have helped. I had to put this in E, unfortunately, because I really didn't enjoy, obviously, Jackie and especially Spencer. Maria was, it was fine. Like, I felt mixed with it. But yeah, I don't remember anything about No. Another movie I don't have any memories on other than, the period stuff is Denmark's A Royal Affair. This does star Alicia Vikander, though, as the female lead, but I also have to put this in E because I don't even remember anything. And then we are into Canada's War Witch, which looks at an African girl, I think kind of some sort of journey while she was pregnant or something like that. I do remember she was pregnant, but I think it's like some sort of journey, I guess. I don't remember anything, so I have to also put this in E. On to 2013 with the Broken Circle Breakdown. I know one of the directors would later, I forget what was his name, but I know he would later direct another movie later this decade called The Eight Mountains. This was in my personal top best picture lineup. I am putting this one, I think in B, but B plus. Been a while since I've seen this movie, but I really remember when I was watching it. I really did enjoy it, especially our main character played by Verly Badens. Um, and I don't remember if there was like a set relationship because it's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I really remembered I really did enjoy it. Next up from Italy, our winner for 2013, Paolo Sorrentino's The Great Beauty. I only remember maybe two things, and that's it. Yeah. I could have put it in an F, but it's not garbage or anything like that, but I just don't remember anything about this. I did watch this back in 2020 because this movie's on the Criterion Collection, and I only remember like what two things like this old man at like a party scene or just like some sort of electronic thing. I don't really remember. Next up is Thomas Vinterberg's The Hunt from Denmark, starring Mads Mikkelsen, which basically is about a teacher, unfortunately getting betrayed by the community after when a student decided to fake an accusation of him sexually assaulting her or something like that, or inappropriately touched her. I believe that's what it is. And the community is just backlashing him, and he's suffering the fate of everybody. Unfortunately, I have to give this in D. I was really disappointed about this movie. Yeah, that girl really should have got a lot of punishment at the end after she made that lie, but Mikkelsen's character did not really deserve all that beatings. Next up, our second documentary here, although did not get in for documentary feature, and that is Cambodia's The Missing Picture. And this is a very creative documentary, honestly, of telling this entire community story here. I am putting this one in S. I really loved how the way the story was told through all these clay models. It's just a pretty unique concept, I will say. It's just fantastic by all means. I don't know, understand why it was not nominated for documentary feature because honestly, 2013 was documentary lineup was kind of pretty weak, honestly, and I think this definitely would have made sense to get double nominated. But I am glad that the international branch recognized Cambodia's submission for this film. It's really well directed from Reddy Pond. Really well told in a screenplay wise of telling the story. It's just really one of the more creative documentaries I've seen. And finally, from 2013, Palestine's Omar. I think it just looks at a couple situation of trying to get across. I think between some not really a like a wall between the Israel and Palestine conflict and stuff like that. Even though that's more of a serious thing right now, today's standards. I have to put this in E. I don't remember anything about Omar, honestly. And then we wrap up into 2014 in the first half of the decade with Ida from Paul Pawlikowski for Poland. I'm putting this one in. I'm gonna put this in A, but it would be A plus. Agata Trabowski as the main girl is fantastic here. And it's just about like before this woman decides to make her final renewals to become a fully developed nun. She just needs at least the nunnery allows her to go outside of the nunnery to experience life for a bit to see if she would change her mind at the last minute, whether it be with her aunt, obviously, that now kind of technically has almost the full custody, you can say, of her because her mother is actually gone. But trying to get a relationship with her aunt or the people around her, especially with a guy or not and stuff like that. It is definitely a very interesting concept of seeing if a nun would, like, before she becomes a full time nun, would she want to have the experience outside in the real world instead of being a nun for the entire time, being married to Jesus. It is very unique. Agatha Trabowski does a fantastic performance. The cinematography really looks well shot, better than what would happen in Pawlikowski's later film that he would do. Gosh. But yeah, this movie definitely did deserve the Oscar for International Feature. The Missing Picture definitely would have been my pick, by the way, for 2013, as you can see. Next up, Leviathan from Russia. I don't remember anything other than like the wintering environment of that big fish skeleton, and yeah, I had to put that in E. Tangerines from Estonia, which looks at a tangerine farmer dealing with two war people from two different sides. and under circumstances while he's dealing with this Tangerine Farm as this ongoing war is going on. I am putting this one in B, but it would be a B plus. I really loved this interesting concept and the whole world building, specifically around the farm area and what was going on around the world, and our main character dealing the situation of not really losing his precious food that he's growing. So, a very interesting watch. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but it was a pretty good one. Next up, Timbuktu for Mauritania. I don't remember anything about this, so I have to put that in E. And then we are into Wild Tales from Argentina, which I believe Pedro Almodovar did produce this film, and his brother Alejandro Almodovar. I am putting this one in C, but it would be a C plus. Now, this is another one of those, like the Ballad of Buster Scruggs. This is an anthology movie. There are three different subjects I really did enjoy. Not the first one with the plane scenario, but the first one where I believe it's a restaurant waitress witnessing a massive abusive attack regarding. I believe it's Julia Zeibler that plays that waitress. She does a fantastic job. The wedding segment of the last segment of the movie, led by Erica Rivas, of her potentially finding out that maybe her husband might be having an affair with her, and then whole insane chaos. I really love that. And then my personal favorite one is the kind of protest scenario led by Ricardo Darlian, who obviously was not just in Son of the Bride, but he was also in The Secret in the Eyes, and he's one of the stars in this segment, and obviously be a star in one of the in Argentina's next nominated film. So man, he really has a big track record. Yeah, that's my favorite segment of him trying to figure out the situation of the. I think it's like either the towing company, I believe, then something like that. It's been a bit, but I do remember loving his segment and the way how he decided to take this ultimate revenge. It's definitely probably my favorite segment in the entire film. But all three of those performances, and Erica Rivas was my number one supporting actress of 2014. Dardian is my personal supporting actor lineup, and Zyber as well. I think there was just some other segments, like the plane one. I think there's another one that I wasn't really big on either. I forget what the other one was. On to 2015, and we begin this up with Embrace of the Serpent from Colombia. Other than being black and white, don't remember anything much of this, so I have to put this in E. Then we go into Francis Mustang, and this is kind of similar, I would say, what would be with Dogtooth, but done better. About all these sisters going into it, so I just put that in A. Yeah, the story definitely seems interesting, but instead of like the perspective of all the family members, this is just the perspective of all the sisters, dealing with no longer being going outside anymore because the parents think that boys are dangerous and stuff like that, and how trouble they did in the school during their last days, and they're unfortunately now homeschooled and stuff like that, or just quit school. Yeah, the parents are a bunch of dicks, but the thing is, are the two young girls, especially the youngest one, has a unique friendship with this truck driver that kind of stops by around, and he kind of really is a massive support to help these girls to get the freedom, as unfortunately some of the other sisters would not be able to. Not in a bad way, but more in a safer way, to be precise. But yeah, the child performances from the two young actresses are fantastic, as well as the actor who plays the adult who kind of basically saves the two girls' life. Yeah, it's just, yeah, the parents really definitely should be ashamed of themselves for what they did, but it definitely is a better experience than Dogtooth because at least the characters are very likable, other than the mean ones. And although Mustang is great, but I think the Oscars did make the right choice with Hungry Son of Saul from Laszlo Nemes. This is going at A. Obviously, kind of is another scenario like the Counterfeiters where you have Jewish people working. Specifically, their job at the moment is just clearing up these dead bodies they already had killed. Kind of another Holocaust survival movie, of course. And Gezo Rurig, who plays the main character, really fantastic. This is another movie that also works well in the 4:3 ratio cinematography. I mean, the fact that a lot of the background is a bit faded and you don't see much of it, and just more in the characters' point of views, like not in the characters' point of views, but just in the center front of the characters that we follow, and the way how they have to deal with the survival, especially this one born kid specifically that our main character has to deal with. Um, it's just a unique survival. Laszlo Nemes did a fantastic job directing. So although Mustang's a really good one, Son of Saul definitely was the right choice and would be my pick. Next up, Thief from Jordan, which focuses on a young kid. I forget how it was, but it was a desert journey, I believe. It's been a bit since I've seen this movie, but I did enjoy it. I'm giving this a B. The main kid is fantastic, I will say. He does a fantastic job in his performance. The whole journey that he goes through. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen this movie, like the Broken Circle Breakdown, but I really did enjoy it. And then we get into A War from Denmark, which is directed by Tobias Lindholm, who later co-wrote Another Round and directed The Good Nurse on Netflix. Basically, a trial of this war veteran committing a massive crime that he was not supposed to. I'm giving this one. I'm gonna give this a D, but it would be a D minus. I don't remember much of the movie, but I do know the whole concept of it all. So then we come into 2016 through 19. Now, for those who don't know, I have done reviews on some of these films way back when, even though I don't think they are not as good as they used to be, but I'm not going to do much of a full recap on them. If you want to see some of my thoughts, I have probably stated some of my thoughts when I saw those movies. So if you want to see what I said in those reviews, you can go check them out, even though I don't do that anymore. So for 2016... Land of Mine from Denmark, I am putting this one in B. I really love the ensemble and how these innocent boys from Germany unfortunately, have to safely detonate these landmine bombs that the Germans had to as somewhat of a way of punishment. But the Danish commander has a unique friendship with these innocent young men that unfortunately have to deal with the situation. A Man Called Ove from Sweden, starring Rolf Lassgård. This would have been my personal pick. I am putting this one in A. It will be A plus though. Obviously Lassgård gets a fantastic performance here, and the story, adapting that story was really well taught in a Swedish format. Even the English remake from Mark Forster starring Tom Hanks, A Man Called Otto, was actually pretty good as well. This movie was also nominated for makeup and hairstyling, by the way, and this would have been my pick. The Salesman from Iran, from Ashghar Farhadi, and obviously this won, not mainly because of the movie, but because Farhadi, as many of you know, this was beginning of 2017. Farhadi was unable to attend the Oscars or go to the United States because he was a Muslim from Iran. As many of you know, Trump did a travel ban on certain Muslim countries from entering into the U.S. due to the terrorist attacks from ISIS primarily throughout the 2010s. And that was his big thing, although that lifted, but Farhadi was unable to attend due to him being a Muslim from Iran. After seeing the movie, I thought it was fine, but I don't remember as much as I used to, but I think I might have saved something in the review I did in that film. It's almost basically like it almost feels like a prequel to a Separation. That's basically what I would say. It felt like a prequel to a Separation. So it's not forgettable or anything like that. And an interesting concept of bringing in the death of a salesman to a Muslim country, but I just don't remember anything. I could have put this in E, but I'm just going to put this in D. Tana from Australia, yeah, interesting. Down Under actually got a nomination here for this unique Romeo and Juliet style movie. Don't remember anything about it, so I have to give this an E. And then Germany's Toni Erdmann from Marianne Ada, starring Sandra Hüller. This was before she went big in 2023, of course. Of her trying to reconnect with her father, of course. I forget who the actor's name is. This movie is obviously a lot in French, but there are some partially English in the movie of this father and daughter reconnection, but it was very, very long. 2 hours and 45 minutes. Not worth it. I had to give that an E. 2017 with our winner, Fantastic Woman from Chile, where a trans woman has kind of been disgraded by the family of her lover's side after finding out that obviously she's a trans woman and they disgrace her. I might have to give this a D. I think it just... Yeah, all the characters are very mean-spirited, but I just think it would have done work better if the dialogue was better. I'm not going to put that in E, because I do remember a couple of scenes from the film, but I don't remember the dialogue, though. Next up from Lebanon, The Insult, a trial between two guys after when an old man decided to accuse a young man for ended up hitting a bad portion of his spleen or something like that in a unique trial of just this unique fight. I'm putting this one in B. It's if you want to see my thoughts on the movie, I probably talked a lot about that more in that review I did years past. Then we come to Loveless from Russia. Oh gosh. I have to put that in F. I mean, this is from the guy who did Leviathan, but the parents, the now divorced couple, trying to find their lost son after they decided not to have the custody of it. It's just, they're both assholes in one way, shape, or form. They kind of pissed me off, so I probably stated a lot of that in my review of the film, but yeah, this movie did piss me off, of course. So it's not terrible by any means. I do remember some unique good shots, but it's not awful like Dogtooth. On Body and Soul from Hungary, I do remember I did like the first hour of the film, but I didn't really like the other half. And I know that the female lead in this movie apparently does have a high functioning autism that she does have. I don't know if it was Asperger's, because I know Roman J. Israel Esquire's Asperger's was more identified. I think this is more of a different type of autism. I would have really loved to connect it a lot more, and I talked probably a lot about this more in my review, so I would give it a C because I loved that first hour, but after the first hour, I kind of fell off on it. And then from Sweden, The Square from Ruben Östlund, the man who made Triangle of Sadness. Unlike that film where it pissed me off, this one actually I really did enjoy. I am giving this one an A. This would have been my personal pick. Just dealing with our main artist's situation of where he's coming from. I don't remember what I said in the review, but if you want to see that, of course, I talked about it. But yeah, Clatz Bane did a fantastic job. Elizabeth Moss is fine in her performance as the English journalist, having fun with the main character. But obviously there is a massive secret. I don't remember much of it, but obviously, and even the main character's relationship with his daughters, I believe. But it's been bits since I've seen this movie, but if you want to see my review of the film, you can see what I've said about that. For 2018, we begin with Capernaum from Lebanon, basically about this boy just looking after this baby after he decided to run away from his parents. I've already talked about this in my review. I'm going to have to give this a D on that one. Paweł Pawlikowski's Cold War from Poland. This one really annoyed me. This one really did, because it's just basically the main two characters go back and forth that they love each other and not much during the situation of the Cold War. I did not like the 4:3 ratio black and white aspect in this film compared to Ida. The only thing I do like about it was the rock around the clock segment, and that was it. Since this movie really pissed me and annoyed me, I had to give this an F. Never Look Away from Germany. This is from Florian Henker von Dornsmark, who did Never Look Away. One of the most beautiful looking movies I have ever seen in my life. This is obviously going to S. Not a masterpiece, but 3 hours worth it. I would, if you've seen my review of the film, I do remember saying this. If you're somebody that is in the art industry, I highly recommend you check this movie out. Even though it's kind of one of the other plots of the film, but I talked a lot about it in that review. It's one of my favorite reviews I think I've done. It's one of the most beautiful looking movies. This would have been my pick for 2018. And then, of course, there is Alfonso Cuarón's Roma from Mexico, the winner of that, Best Picture nominee. I had given that a B in the Best Picture tier list, so if you want to see that, go check out the review, or the Best Picture tier list I did. And then we're into Shoplifters from Japan, from Hirokoto Ukusada. I forgot. I know he directed After, is it After Yang or After Life that I have in the Criterion Collection? I forgot what it was called. I think it's called Afterlife, I believe. Yeah, Afterlife, that's what it is. I believe I gave this, I think it's a C, I believe I gave this. I don't remember where I ranked this. It was between that and Capernaum, but actually, let me put that in D. I think it belongs more in D, because the only thing I do remember is just the one teenage girl's interesting job that she has, and that's about it. Then to 2019 with Poland's Corpus Christi. Interesting concept, but I didn't really care for the characters, so I had to get that a C. Then we are into our next documentary, Honeyland from North Macedonia, the first film to be nominated for both documentary and international feature the same year. I also recommend you check my review out of the film. I'm giving this an S. This would have been my pick for both documentary and international feature. That's up on the documentary tier list. I mean, all the people that you follow, you both love and hate. You do enjoy all of them. Cinematography, well, it looks well shot. The direction was phenomenal. The editing is well paced. Oh my gosh. Yeah. If you want to see my review in the film, go check it out. Then into France's Les Miserables, and kind of a modern interpretation of it, but it's loosely based on Lachey Leaves' short film, where it's basically the police versus minorities. I'm gonna have to get that a D. I don't remember much about it other than the big climax. But if you can go check out my review of the film. Next up, and I can see this is not in the correct order, Pain and Glory from Spain, Pedro Almodovar's movie. I've also talked about this film as well in the non-best picture top 8 tier list, so I gave it an E. If you want to see my thoughts on it, go check out part 4 on that tier list. And then, of course, we wrap up the 2010s with our first non-English film, of course, Parasite. I accidentally put it in B in the video, if you remember, in the best picture tier list. It actually goes into C. If you do remember my thoughts on Parasite, the thing about it is, as I've stated, in the best picture tier list, if you know where the movie is going, you're not going to be a fan of the entire film. So, because we know they were going to get caught regardless. Now on to this decade so far, the 2020s. So this one will have a little bit more fresher takes for me on this one. Starting up, of course, it was our winner from Denmark, Another Round from Thomas Vinterberg. I already talked about this one as well on my non-best picture top 8 tier list on the fifth part. I gave it an S, so that's where it's going to go. So we go into Better Days from Hong Kong. I am giving this one a B, and this one is pretty good, specifically on the subject of a movie that really goes into the subject of bullying. And that kind of really, I think I said bullying wrong, so I misspelled that. But yeah, bullying is something that never really is brought up in a lot of big named movies like a lot of these. Yes, there's like Evil, of course, that we talked about, and you can even say Mustang. But this one really definitely shows in the Asian world specifically. The performances are probably the one thing that kind of keeps it from going into like A, but I do think the writing was really well done. Our next documentary that was nominated for both international and documentary feature the same year from Romania, Collective, which looks at journalists' investigation of the Collective nightclub fire and how the health officials also dealt with this and the massive exposure to the Romanian government about this and how they poorly handle this. I am giving this one a D. I don't know if it's giving me vibes of Spotlight or not, even though this is a narrative documentary we're following, of course. The only thing I remembered like about this entire movie is a scene of a dead body, and you see little maggots around the neck of the burnt skin, and that's the only thing I remembered about that movie. I think it was like through a security camera, some sort of footage that they were reviewing or something like that. That's the only thing I do remember that, and that was like, oh gosh, it is very unfortunate that all those that unfortunately died on that tragic accident. But yeah, you can understand why the Romanian government and health officials were had to be called out. Next up, the man who sold his skin from Tunisia, from Council Ben Hunina, who would later do Four Daughters, which is in the documentary side, but almost got in this category, and a film that can actually be nominated maybe for this upcoming year's Oscars with her 2025 film, The Voice of Hit Rajab. I am giving this one a C. Now, the concept definitely seemed great, and it definitely seemed interesting, but obviously the massive consequences our main character has to deal with that he doesn't have any more restrictions. But there is another thing I also have to say, and this is kind of a criticism I would say as a non-English film. It's not really a non-English film to me because I think, like Kong Tiki, this should have been ruled ineligible because I think the movie was primarily in English, more so than I forget what the native language is in Tunisia, so I can't really say what it is, but you know which one it is. But yeah, this movie should have been ruled ineligible. I mean, it's not really that like it's well shot, but I just think and even with the consequences that the main character has to deal with, all the characters just being an asshole to him, it's just kind of ridiculous when he can't really do anything when he's just an art piece. Um, yeah, and obviously there was just too much English in the film, so I would have probably ruled this ineligible. And then next we got Kovada Zaida from Bosnia and Herzegovina. Um, I am giving this one. I'm gonna give this one a D as well. The main character obviously is this translator for the Bosnian people and trying to get the United Nations to save her family from this Bosnian war. It's just that the military obviously just doesn't do anything because it almost feels like you can understand, but there were some consequences. It's a bit confusing, obviously, but you understand when you see the movie. But I just think it just kind of like, since this is a fictional story, I think it didn't work well. If this was a real story, then it would have been more better. And not really saying that in a positive way, but I think just having this fictional story just didn't work. Next up, we come into what I consider to be the best year in the category of the century so far, 2021, because I ended up liking all 5 of the nominees. And of course, we begin obviously, of course, with Japan's "Drive My Car" by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. I already talked about this in the Best Picture tier list video. I accidentally put it in B in the tier list, but I think I said I put it in A on this one, I believe. So if I'm not mistaken, let me know. But I did talk about this movie. I really don't need to go into any explanation, but it is still a phenomenal film and definitely would have been my personal pick. Next up, our second animated film nominated in the category, and the third film to be nominated for Documentary International for the same year, but the first one to be nominated in all 3 featured film categories, the Denmark documentary Flee. Oh my gosh. I also am going to put this one in A. It is a fantastic movie of learning about Amin's journey, which is not his real name, is just his fake name in order to prevent his real life identity, which is why the movie is animated, of the journey where he has to escape from this ongoing war in his home country in the Middle East, and then ends up going into Denmark and also dealing with all the situation from migrating from country to country to end up finally going to where he is now in the present. The way how it's told, especially through the animations, just really well done. Um, and how the filmmaking team from Jonas Paul Ramus and the director of the film just making sure that Amin's story is told, and how unfortunate that this is the sad reality that some people unfortunately have to illegally migrate to another country to avoid massive things like going to war and stuff like that. It's well told, well taught. This would have been my pick for documentary and animated feature, but I would agree with the Academy on Drive My Car for the animated feature category. Next up from Italy, The Hand of God, also from Paolo Sorrentino, of course, who did The Great Beauty. I am giving this one a B. This is a great coming of age movie about this young man dealing with obviously the situations going on, not just in his life, but also with his family and stuff like that, whether it be with his relatives, his parents, or especially his aunt, who is kind of mentally ill specifically, and obviously has like a connection with this kind of criminal and stuff like that, a unique friendship that he has with him, and also exploring a little bit of like on his own around his area and just finding out what he wants to do since he's getting older. So it is really well done. It's definitely better for me than The Great Beauty. Next up, Lunana, a yak in the classroom from Bhutan, and here's an interesting story. This movie actually originally, Bhutan actually originally submitted it in 2020, but it was disqualified because it missed the deadline. But it was allowed to qualify again for the 2021 release because I think there was some sort of miscommunication, I believe. I don't remember. So it ended up getting submitted again, got on the shortlist, and got nominated. And this is a really well crafted movie. I'm giving this one a B. It does take a bit from the journey of the first half hour where our main character has to go from this his hometown to this small village where he has to teach this school. But when he gets to the little village in to teach that school, his relationship with the kids and just being a great teacher to them and getting to know a little bit around the village is pretty unique. The movie is well shot. It's well great on its cinematography levels. Well directed from Pao Jung Dory, and the cast is really good as well. But yeah, this is definitely worthy of being resubmitted again and actually getting that nomination. And then, of course, you've got Norway's The Worst Person in the World from Joachim Trier. I also talked about this in the non-best picture top 8 tier list video, and this is of course going in A as well. I mean, I already talked about it. Renate Reinsve gives one of the best performances of that year, um, so I really don't need to go any explanation. But if you want to see my thoughts on it, go check out that tier list video, of course. On to 2022 and begin the German adaptation of All Quiet on the Western Front. I already talked about this one. It's going on E, and even though it's interesting, the now first film adaptation is now available to the public domain now. But the German adaptation, I really don't have much things to say. If you want to see my thoughts on that, go check out the Best Picture tier list one. Next up, Argentina 1985, which actually won the Golden Globe over All Quiet and RRR, and once again, starring Ricardo Darín. So I gotta say, if Argentina does another big movie starring Ricardo Darín that gets a major Oscar buzz, he could be on the road to get an Oscar nomination. I will say that. I am putting this one in B. I really do like the story of this real life story of the massive the crime that's going on, or the situation going on with the Argentinian government at the time. It's been a bit since I've seen this movie, but I remember really liking the script and Darían's performance on this and the whole trial that it was being built up. Next up, my personal pick for 2002, Close from Belgium, which is about this young boy kind of more dealing closely with a close friend of his, but unfortunately something happens and he is now kind of dealing the situations on his own a bit. I am giving this one an A. This almost could have been a masterpiece if there were some minor issues, like maybe with not really addressing, because you would have thought this would have been an LGBTQ plus themed movie going into concept in this, but it's not. And I think the ending was a little bit too rushed. That was probably my only gripe with the movie. Edmund Denbrain, who plays the main character in this, fantastic performance, well written, very heartfelt. The actress who plays the friend's mother, who unfortunately is no longer with us, she kind of passed a year or two ago. I think it was last year, I believe. This past year, since we're now in 2025. Was fantastic in that. Very unfortunate she was gone close too soon at a young age. But yeah, well shot, well told, very emotional status. Next up, the Donkey movie, EO from Poland. Oh boy. I am giving this one a C. It's well directed, well shot, well sound wise, and I love how we barely don't have any dialogue, but it's just that I don't know if it's just like how many people that this donkey goes to, whether it be from a truck driver to an original owner to a football team, as it's obviously called a soccer team, of course, being their good luck charm and stuff like that. It just kind of goes into what obviously ended up happening to him, this donkey, unfortunately, at the end of the movie. Even though I think no donkey, they did say to the end, none of them were harmed in the end of the film. And then we go into The Quiet Girl from Ireland. So I believe this is Ireland's first nominee in this category. I am giving this one a B. This movie really meant a lot for to varying emotional status, because it's almost kind of similar to Close, you can say, but in different perspectives, but different scenarios, of course, where this main girl, played by Catherine Clinch, who is fantastic, does this interesting connection with these two adults that had lost their kid, and in a way for her to kind of almost like spend a day out, like an entire kind of similar, I would say, to what would be with When Marnie Was There, if you the Studio Ghibli film, where she goes to these two parents' house and kind of experience a different life, especially in the farmland, stuff like that, and the connection that she has with these two adults, like these two like now widow parents, you can say. Um, it's just, and all three of the characters have this connection, especially with our main character and the widow father. They really have that unique relationship, and well written, adapting that novel. Colin Barre did a pretty good job, as well as Lucas Tom, who did Close. Into 2023, and you might be wondering, where is Anatomy of a Fall? Well, France decided not to submit the film, but then again, the movie had a lot more English in it than it is in French, so I kind of agree it definitely would have been not been eligible. So we begin this up with Il Capitano from Italy, from Matteo Garrone, who before that actually did the infamous 2020 Pinocchio movie, the one starring Roberto Benigni as Geppetto, not the one, the Benigni as the titular character. It's the recent Italian adaptation with Benigni as Geppetto, which got in for costume design and makeup and hairstyling. Il Capitano, which is also known as the captain, I believe. It is an interesting journey of where these two African migrants are going across from their home country to Italy throughout this unique journey. I'm giving this one a B. Sado Asar, who plays the main character, really does a fantastic job, and the whole cross country going thing from different country to country to get to their destination, and then the climax with them on the boat, with him being the main captain of the ship for the migrants, it's just really well done. Next up is Perfect Days from Japan, from Wim Wenders, the man behind films such as Paris, Texas, Wings of Desire, Until the End of the World, and documentaries like Buena Vista Social Club, Pina, and The Salt of the Earth. This is, I believe, his first narrative film to receive an Oscar nomination, I believe, because all his documentaries have been recognized, but never his narrative films. Um, and it's interesting Japan decided to choose this instead of The Boy and the Heroine or Godzilla Minus One or even Evil Does Not Exist from Ryusuke Hamaguchi. They chose Wim Wenders' film, and ironically enough, Wenders became the first non-Japanese person to win Best Director at the Japanese Academy Awards, which that's kind of their equivalent to the American ones. I'm giving this one a D, unfortunately. I was really looking forward to this, but I end up being disappointed. It's not because there's barely any dialogue. It's just that you just see this guy just doing what he does in his job in real life. But I will say, as soon as his niece comes in, played by Arisa Nakano, I believe, all of her moments from her time portion of the movie when she comes into her final scene, definitely the best part of the movie. I think her presence really captivated her unique relationship with her uncle after not seeing her for quite a while because she kind of has a strict mother, which it's basically the main character's sister, of course, that he has not seen in a while. But just the unique journey of how they go seeing her, what he does on a daily basis on cleaning all these Japanese toilets and then just seeing what they kind of do. But yeah, not really my personal thing. I was kind of really downgraded for it, but if I would go back to this movie, it would just be the portion of Arisa Nakano's performance for Mint. And then into Society of the Snow from Spain. This is from J.A. Bayona, who did The Impossible, which earned Naomi Watts a Best Actress nomination. He also did A Monster Calls back in 2016. And this is the real-life biopic of the famous 1971 Uruguayan flight that unfortunately ended up having a massive malfunction, I believe, ended up crashing to a field in a snowy hill island, and unfortunately a lot of the passengers unfortunately dead, and they had no way to connect it due to the plane sources coming, obviously no connections, and they have to basically survive throughout the entire journey from it. And unfortunately there are some people that unfortunately would die from massive things, from avalanches to other fortunate things to the coldness. And unfortunately, this obviously happened in real life, that some of them had to sacrifice by eating the flesh of the dead bodies in order to survive, and they had to obviously, unfortunately, had to do that for their own sins in order for survivalness. I kind of stated this in the best picture. This should have been Netflix's potential top candidate if they wanted to do something big in the Oscars instead of Maestro, honestly, or Naiad, even though I did like Naiad a lot more than this. I'm giving this one a B. It is a fantastic survival story. Just getting to know what happened in real life. I mean, it's very unfortunate what happened, but you can understand the situations that all the people in that real life had to deal with. And that ensemble really did a fantastic job on recaptivating that moment, as well as Bayona's direction. I mean, this movie should have got a lot more recognition other than international feature and makeup and hairstyle, which I can understand the makeup nomination now. But it should have gotten in for like visual effects. It should have been on the sound short list. I don't know why it was not on the sound short list. Adapted screenplay definitely would have been fine. Bayona would have not made my director lineup, but it's still a pretty good movie nonetheless. So it's still a fantastic movie of how they told this, one of the better biopics of that year. Honestly, I prefer it even more so than Oppenheimer. Sorry. Now we're into my personal pick for 2023, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany. I am giving this one an A on this one. Let me just say, Leo Benesch as the main character, she was fantastic in this movie. She was definitely one of my favorite performances, but unfortunately, it was a bitch to take her out of my personal Best Actress lineup because 4 of the 5 Oscar nominees were just so fantastic in that lineup. It just like it was one of the strongest years in the leading actress categories, and it was unfortunate because if I had 10 nominees, she definitely would have been in. I think she was number 6 or 7 for me. If you go follow me on the Awards Expert app and follow the favorites of 2023 list, you might see where she is because yeah, this movie obviously really did a well job on how the teacher has to deal with this one student who is obviously kind of doing the situation after his mother allegedly stole some money from her. Um, because of the situation that she's at. And obviously, this male student really doesn't like this boy. Obviously, has this interesting connection. This is kind of a lot of people said this is almost similar to The Hunt, but in a different scenario storytelling. Obviously, where The Hunt was more of a serious one, the Teacher's Lounge more of an allegation or stuff like that, a theft, and then just all of her scenes with her as the teacher, and even with her moments with the boy, is just pretty well done. I don't think there's. I think they don't go anywhere else outside of the school. I think the school is the primarily building in the entire movie. I think they just go outside for one portion, and that was it. And she just really did a fantastic job. The writing is also really fantastic. What Ilkay Shata did. Yeah, this would have been my pick for 2023 for international feature over the one that did won the win, the United Kingdom's nominee, which is from Jonathan Glazer, The Zone of Interest, the third nomination overall for the UK, and of course, it was also up for Best Picture. If you've seen the Best Picture tier list, I give my thoughts on this already. I'm putting this one in E. If you want to see my thoughts on it, go check that out. Speaking of Best Picture nominees, let's get into the last year of the first half of the 21st century with 2024, and we begin this up with the infamous Emilia Perez from France by Jacques Audiard. Obviously, I've stated I'm in the minority. I did like it a lot more than a lot of people did, but it is going in B tier. As I've said, if you wanted to see my thoughts on the film, just check that out. Now we'll get into Flow from Latvia, our third animated film nominated in the category and our first narrative animated film to be nominated, and the only movie on this list that has no dialogue. And that kind of questions me whether or not movies with no dialogue should be eligible or not. Because if they were, the artist would have won this category because it's technically a French movie, even though it is primarily a French-U.S. collaboration, of course, between them and the Weinstein Company when that movie came out. But yeah, so I would have ruled no films with no dialogue. I would have ruled them ineligible. In terms of the movie itself, I am giving Flow a B. It's not my personal pick for animated feature. It is a very interesting movie of just this unique cast of animal characters, of just this cat, this capybara, this ringtail lemur, this dog, and this I forget what the bird was called. I forgot what it was called. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, an interesting cast of real live animal characters just going through this massive flood journey, and then the last scene they're seeing with this big giant whale. The animation it really looks well done in this format. Really well done, and just in an animal's perspective, and just seeing the unique where the cat has to deal with the relationship with each of these animals specifically, leading into the big climax. Yeah, I just think there are some issues with the movie. I think it's just like yeah, it does take its time, but I think maybe that climax probably could be the big reason. I think there could have been a better solution. I would say. Obviously, there is no humans in this movie in general. But I really wish it would have been a little bit more of a unique survival where they finally found a destination for them. But then obviously what happens in the end when the water kind of goes down now. Next up, The Girl with a Needle from Denmark. I am giving this one a D. Is well shot. Vic Carmensonia does a great performance. But when you see the movie, oh gosh. Yeah. This is not the best way to deal with babies, honestly. I mean, that woman is just. I mean, the fact that we obviously do not know the reason what happened to our main character's baby, well, I won't go into that, but oh gosh, it just really is unfortunate. And the way how the main character unfortunately is treated, like even after when she is working with this main character, with this main antagonist, you can say it just doesn't work for me. And then, of course, our winner from that year that beat Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here from Brazil by Walter Salles. I had also had did this in the best picture tier list. I gave it a B as well. So if you want to see my thoughts on I'm Still Here, just go watch part 5 on that video. And we wrap this up with The Seed of the Sacred Fig from Germany, a movie that was secretly filmed in Iran, but it was primarily made for Germany, of course, because it was collaboration, kind of technically. But obviously, the real reason is that the director of the film has been a massive criticism towards the Iranian government. And obviously, this is a movie that obviously does criticize the Iranian government, especially on women's rights. I'm giving this a B, but it would be a B plus. The first hours of the film, like, it's really well done. But I would say Act 3 was probably the bit of the downfall of it, honestly. I think the third act kind of prevents it, even though three of the performances from, with our main two characters being Solia Gostani as the female lead, as the wife of the family, and Masari Azar as the male lead of the family, and especially Masha Rostami as one of the daughters, who is fantastic in this movie. You can understand, obviously, the situation with both of the perspectives, with obviously with the women's rights in Iran, that they feel like they're not, because women in Iran, rights in Iran has been very a serious subject matter in recent years, especially this decade, what's been going on. And then obviously with the main character dealing the situation with missing his gun for his protection, since he's kind of a law official. But then you understand what the situation, but then the third act kind of really went downhill, I would say, of almost feeling like a betrayal or something like that to what he does to his wife and his daughters. I just don't like that. It's just like, it almost feels like he's not caring about as a human being instead of what he's doing under the Iranian leadership. But it is like a big serious message. I get it, what Mohammad Rusalev was doing, but I think it just didn't work well, I would say, in execution wise, in the third act alone. It did work well in the first two acts, but not for the third act, unfortunately. But it would still be my pick for international feature over Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Flo, and the Girl with the Needle, though. But it would be like a B plus scenario. That's the thing. So this is the full recap, and I did kind of calculate in my math. 61 are in the S, A, and B tier, and 64 on the C, D, E, F, and double F tier. And as you can see, yes, no film got in the double S tier here. I did not find a masterpiece in the international feature lineup. There is one non-English film that I do find it's a masterpiece, but it's an American production, and that's Past Lives, and I can't put that in here because obviously U.S. non-English films are not allowed to qualify for this category, obviously, because that's, well, cheating. So yeah, unfortunately, no double S tier one in this one, so we haven't yet to found a masterpiece nominee in the international feature category for me. I don't know how we'll find out for 2025 or so, but there might be soon. But we do have one in the double F tier, so I consider Yorgos' Dogtooth the worst nominee ever in this category. So yeah, so basically the big winners is the ones that are all in the S tiers are Divided We Fall, Lagan, Once Upon a Time in India, The Man Without a Past, Twin Sisters, As It Is in Heaven, Don't Tell, After the Wedding, Ensemble, In Darkness, The Missing Picture, Never Look Away, Honeyland, and Another Round. In terms of the overall best winner, yeah, so it basically is the best winner for me is Another Round because it's the only winner here that is in the S tier list. All the others are in A, B, I don't think any C, D, and E, I believe. So yeah, so I consider Another Round to be the best winner in the category in 25 years of this category's history of the 21st century so far. So that kind of wraps it up here for the international tier list. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Next time, the tier list that we'll hopefully be doing, and I want to get these next two tier lists before Oscar nominations come out, not just this one, but the other two feature film ones. So the next time we're going to be back will be the documentary feature tier list.